On the Build Show today, we've got a best of from Travis Brungardt, who traveled all the way over to Switzerland to see a 4-year carpentry school. That's right, these students are learning over the span of 4 years some incredible carpentry skills. This makes me really jealous. I actually wish I could go at my age over there and attend this school. So with that being said, let's jump into carpentry school in Switzerland. Let's get going.
I'm Travis Brungardt.
I'm Joe Cook.
We're here in Bern, where we're at the Holzbau Schweiz, which is a 4-year carpentry school where they take students from 18 to 22, actually all ages,
Yeah.
and teach them every manner of woodcraft, from timber framing, complex joinery, to your typical framing carpentry on site. Let's go inside and check it out. So here inside of the Holzbau, where the carpenters go through a 4-year program, you can see that we have obviously a beautiful facility, but a number of different assemblies at play that gives the carpenters an opportunity to work on everything through roof framing, skylight installation. On the other side of this, there's a module for solar install. And underneath this roof deck, there are 2 carpenters, aspiring carpenters, working now on sketching their models and mock-ups. So obviously a beautiful facility, but this is all funded through a number of complicated layers, Joe.
Yeah, it essentially starts with a contract between the apprentice and the company who sponsors them. The company then, I don't know, they hire them on, and I forgot what it was, like $450 to $650 a month
$750 a month.
to start out.
Right.
And that goes all the way up in year 4 to $1,750. So it is, you're making some money and you're not getting rich, but you're also learning a trade.
Sure.
And so it's a 4-year commitment, and it's a partnership between school learning in this facility and then on-site learning with your company that sponsored you. And it's everything. It's a mix between traditional construction as well as modern construction, a lot of emphasis on job safety. Yeah. And we're standing around and we're watching these guys work. They're sketching things out on paper. They're executing it then with tools. They have assistance from the instructors, their peers. It's a really neat facility.
Yeah, they sort of have a dual learning setup where they're in part on site with the company that they're working for, and then the other half of that is actually a 3-part vocational module where they include obviously the work here at the Holzbau, but there is other facilities where they're learning traditional skills as well. So it's not just a path to carpentry, it really is the finishing education. So again, here at the Holzbau School, you can see that they're not just teaching old world, hand tools, and they're also not just teaching modern finishes, but they're really teaching the entire package because that's what their carpenters are facing in the field. You can see here they've got a mock-up built that integrates rain screen details, a modern cladding system, in dams of window flashings that would be provided from the manufacturer here. And all these integration details are really important. With the way that this is all assembled, you can really see what they're facing in the field as compared with some of the more traditional things that they have to deal with, where they're building stairs, complex wood joineries, mortise and tenon joints. It really is a comprehensive education, and frankly is why their carpenters are so well prepared for anything they might face in the field. So we've never hand-built a self-supported stair like this on our side, where you actually integrate railings that are part of the uplift, part of the support. That's not something that I was ever trained on. I started cutting stringers in the field after I saw someone else do it and I read a book. So having the opportunity to actually have hands-on instruction from master carpenters that came up in this system 45 years ago, worked in the fields and then retired, it's really a tremendous opportunity. And these students leave with the equivalent of a collegiate education in the craft that we face every day on site. And that's why they're so tremendously valuable. And that's why it makes sense for these companies to invest their dollars into these students, essentially paying their way for this 4-year education, this 4-year commitment It's almost 50% financed by the companies that hire these potential workforce.
So you can see we're standing here on scaffolding, and it's set up as part of their training practices. They even have a control scaffolding up here while they're working on their skylight, working on their air sealing details. And one thing we were taught while we were here is that in Switzerland, it's a nationwide, rule mandate that if a project takes longer than a day to complete, then it's mandatory you have scaffolding. You can use, a skyjack or scissor lift, but there's, primarily that's used on the interior finishes. And pretty much every project we've been on this tour, there's exterior scaffolding around the entire building. As a country, they're emphasizing safety for their workers. So we're walking around and we saw this mock-up, and it's a substantial mock-up that the kids have built, I'm sure with the assistance of their professors. But this is a vented roof assembly with skylights. So first thing we noticed was here's your vent channel down here. It's the same aluminum screening that we've seen on a lot of projects here in Switzerland. And then you have your Siga My Coat. It's basically your water protection, skylight, and all the felts and everything, just flashing details that are needed in your roof assembly. And if you peek around the corner, it's a little bit different than traditional roofing in America, but it's a typical example of a Swedish roof there.
So we're here in the loft above one of the classrooms here in the Holzbau Center. And this is a great place to show off the models that the students build. And it's important to show these off because this is a huge part of their grade. Not only are they going through constant assessment on their job sites for their employer, who's basically funding half their education, but they're also being, I guess you'd say, judged, audited, assessed by their instructors here, as well as completing, I want to say, how much?
25 hours of testing.
That's not 25 hours of coursework. That's
25 hours of test taking.
So 40% of that being practical work, 16 hours. Their professional skills at 15% or 4 hours. Drawing working plans, 3 hours of testing for 10% of that. General education, which we talked about before. This isn't just woodworking and carpentry. This really does encompass a broader general education. And then their experience and notes from BFS. So a total of 25 hours of test taking. They have to draw the plans for these models to be able to understand complex roof assemblies and joinery. Then they have to cut and create these. And then what do we have going here, Joe? This isn't carpentry. This is
great. I want to take this back home with us. Even though it's not the exact same materials we use, it kind of gives the theory behind of what a good building assembly should be. You have your air and water here, your tape joints. It's all great Siga products. We have our air channel here, and then our exterior siding. This roof structure here, they're using CLTs, which is nice. Just a different structure compound than we're used to. Timber framing, staircase joinery. It's just the whole gamut of everything you need to be a master carpenter. When you complete this program, they did talk about how you enter into your company as an adult. You might be 22 and your coworkers are 45, but you have the same degree that they have. And you have a lot of field experience because in addition to studying here, you're also working in the field with your company.
Yeah, I think it's impressive in my mind. These students are making a decision at age 15 to commit to this program. And apparently the Swiss education system is a little more, I guess you'd say, complete by that stage. So in America, we tend to finish high school somewhere around a 17, 18-year-old. You've finished your primary education and you're ready to make a choice. Do you want to continue into college? Do you want to go into the trades? What opportunities are there for you? These students at 15 have essentially completed that, algebra level of mathematics, English, and sciences. So you're really down to what vocation do you choose? And for some, there's a retail internship or vocational school. There's every manner of job that we require for a society.
I even have an internship to be a mailman.
Oh, what do you say? Is it a 2-month process to be a letter carrier?
Yes.
So everything in this country is set up to be trained and committed to and done precisely. And I think it's very telling that it's a 2-month coursework for a letter carrier and it's a 4-year program for a carpenter. So this formal level of training has a tremendous amount of benefit to the society and is supported by the companies because they benefit greatly. Over that 4-year period, they're getting however many hours that ends up being, 6,000 hours of actual on-site time from these potential carpenters. And then at age 20 in Switzerland, if you're a male, you have mandatory military service 1 year. So also important to note that these companies that are paying into 50% of this student's education, they don't have a guarantee that that student will come on and be part of their program, or their company rather. After they do their military service, they come back and they may or may not go back to that same company, regardless of that investment in the student.
Yeah, the whole program's set up for options. So you could do your 4-year apprenticeship and then choose to go into a university to, continue it and be an engineer. Or you could, decide to do military service. Or you could come back and, go into a retail apprenticeship. So all the options are there, but it's set up in a way I think it's set up to prepare the youth for the best chance to move forward.
No question.
You can get a really good job as a carpenter. You can get a really good job as a mailman. You could go into retail. You could go into military service. You could do all that and then still go to university.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about some of the models that the students have to build, and it really does demonstrate a complete understanding of the different elements at play in a building. Obviously, we talked about the hand-cut joinery. Your typical bird's mouth cuts, but you're also doing some compound miter work here. You have traditional mechanical fasteners. I think Joe mentioned the CLT for the roof structure here. But as we continue on down the line, we have air sealing for your electrical penetrations here. I'm assuming this would be a window. We're talking about air sealing our sheathing at this point. But then here's your metal cap for your ventilated rain screen here. And as we move on through the mock-up area, you can see we have various different stair assemblies that have to be built and railings. So the students have such a comprehensive coursework that they really are prepared for most anything they might face in the field. So again, this is not something that we would typically build on our sites because of its complexity, but we're looking at a captured tread, stringers carrying all the weight. But if I whip this around, you can see that they're also demonstrating different joinery in the traditional sense. You have wood joinery and mechanical fasteners. In the US, we use almost exclusively mechanical fasteners unless it's a timber frame. But for this, it's really the marriage of the two. You have your traditional wood joinery, but then these corner vents have probably a Rothablas or similar wooden connector that's engineered and made from metal. So it's really that understanding of all of these elements that I think is empowering to these students and gives them the best opportunity to succeed. Again, it's not just carpentry. It really is comprehensive, as I keep saying. You're looking at a sound and thermal insulation here that they've cut and stuffed into the cavity. On this other side, you can see the control layers being continued in terms of air and water. And I guess I just sort of marvel at the commitment to the angles being precise, the cuts being precise, the level of commitment that it takes to build a structure like this at 15 to 18 years old is very impressive to me. And frankly, I'm a little envious of the Swiss system. So as with everything that we've seen over here, there's a real commitment to cleanliness and efficiency. And what you're seeing here are the wood pellets that are created from all of the dust collection on the facility. You'll notice there's no dust and sawdust, wood chips lying around on the floor, in part because these guys are careful and they're being clean about their work, but also because the dust extraction is compressing all of that potential waste into these pellets, which they burn, and it makes about 50% of their power to heat this facility. So again, a commitment to cleanliness and efficiency and sustainability, really something admirable. So you can see going from the log to the board, this really is a complete education. They're talking milling, they're talking ventilated rain screen claddings, open joint claddings, board and batten systems, all the traditional siding opportunities here, or options rather, basically to give the carpenter complete familiarity. And then you can see it doesn't just stop with the claddings here. We also have Obviously, they can be breaking down logs and understanding, rift sawn, quarter sawn, and all that, as well as the different roofing elements. Definitely a little different than what we see. We might have a metal roof. We occasionally have a concrete tile roof, but for the most part, in our market, it's composition, asphalt composition roof. So this is an important part of the carpenter's understanding as well, because they're supporting these elements, which are obviously much heavier than a typical asphalt roof. So more great systems here at the Holzbau School.
All right, guys, this has been a best of build show. You've probably noticed that on Tuesdays, we're publishing all of our contributors over on thebuildshow.com for a best of series so you can get to know them. We've been doing this for a little while now. It's given me a little bit of a break in the summertime, and it's giving us an opportunity to highlight some of the fabulous contributors like Travis Brungardt. Now, Travis is a builder in Kansas City. He's been with us for probably 3 years now, so he's got a ton of back content. Go check him out on thebuildshow.com. If you hit that hamburger menu, you'll see Build Experts on there, Travis Brungardt. You can also sign up for our newsletter. We'll put a link in the description below for our newsletter, because my team's going to send you an email on Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday saying, here's what's new on the site. We're publishing like 14 or 15 new videos every single week. And some of that content you might miss if you weren't connected to our newsletter. So sign up for that newsletter, and that way you'll know what's new with Travis. With that being said, guys, follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.